Next on the news.
What we're celebrating is the establishment of a parish.
Brooklyn Bishop Robert Brennan reflecting on the history of the Cathedral Basilica of St. James ahead of its 200th anniversary celebration. Also, former President Trump backing the unsealing of the warrant to search his Mar-a-Lago home in Florida. And
it was really just an amazing experience. I equated a lot to like running a marathon.
He braved waters with sharks and strong currents to help his team. We'll speak with the St. Francis Prep football coach who took on a dangerous swimming challenge. Plus, the young boy with a big heart who's helping to bring joy to Ukrainian children, one toy at a time. I'm Christine Persichetti. This special edition of Currents News starts right now.
When I first arrived here as rector, I immediately felt something. It's just marvelous.
It's a celebration honoring the 200 years of history behind the first Catholic church to be built on Long Island. The Cathedral Basilica of St. James marking 2 centuries since it was founded. And Brooklyn Bishop Robert Brennan is asking his flock to join him for a special mass on Sunday. That's when the faithful will fill the pews just as they've been doing from the church's beginning. The doors at the Cathedral Basilica of St. James have been opened by visitors for 2 centuries.
It's a very important moment, I think, in the history of the diocese. 200 years of this parish, the first parish on all of Long Island. I mean, that's awesome.
Former rector Monsignor John Strinkowski talked about the church on Bishop Robert Brennan's podcast, Big City Catholics.
All the windows are so spectacular.
They really
are. On a sunny Sunday morning, the church just absolutely glows.
From the stained glass windows to the architecture of the cathedral, which from above you can see is shaped like a cross, its beauty has amazed visitors for 200 years. And since the beginning, the parish has hosted many diocesan events, including a visit from Pope St. John Paul II. But before St. James was established in 1822, the Irish immigrants who lived in Brooklyn had to take ferries to Manhattan to attend Mass.
Over these 200 years, this part of Brooklyn, as all of Long Island, has seen enormous changes and changes to the changes.
But there's been one constant.
The parish itself has honored and celebrated and remembered the Eucharist for 200 years. What an amazing thing when you think about that. We have this continuity that's I think, something to be very grateful for, and that we should be celebrating today.
And the diocese is celebrating.
The story of the Catholic Church really begins right here.
DeSales Media produced a documentary in honor of this milestone, and Bishop Brennan will celebrate a special Mass at the cathedral. You can participate in both.
We've invited all of the lay faithful of the diocese to come and to celebrate this milestone.
New York's Cardinal Timothy Dolan will be the main celebrant and homilist at the Mass. Bishop Brennan will concelebrate along with Rockville Center's Bishop John Barris. As the first church built on Long Island, St. James has played a big role in unifying Catholics. Ahead of the celebration, I asked Bishop Brennan how the cathedral has tied these 3 dioceses together.
In 200 years ago, when a group of people who were living here in Brooklyn were looking for a church, at that time they would have to cross over the East River by boat, which was not an easy thing to do. And so they petitioned, they asked for a church to be built here, for a parish to be established. See, that's what we're celebrating, is the establishment of a parish. And so on New Year's Day in 1822, they sought the possibility of establishing a parish. And then on the Feast of St. James, it was established as such. And so we're celebrating this bicentennial year. But what we celebrate is really the beginning of the life of the church, not just a moment here or there, but the fact of the matter that the church, as a vibrant community of people of God, sharing their faith, giving praise to God, are established as a parish. And that's the beginning of the parish life here on Long Island, the counties Brooklyn, Queens, Nassau, Suffolk.
Yeah, it's like everybody has a connection to this parish. And as you know, you mentioned the immigrants that built this parish. The Diocese of Brooklyn is known as the Diocese of Immigrants. Here we have masses in dozens of languages every day. But how do we bring everyone together? Can events like this Mass this weekend do that, bring everyone together?
One of the things we do in the church, Monsignor Strinkowski describes it as we celebrate incarnational moments. We celebrate those moments that have tangible effects in our history, and certainly the establishment of the parish of St. James is one of those key moments. And yes, so that's really the goal, is our being together at Mass at the Cathedral Basilica, but also the presence of Net TV and how we have that outreach, because St. James Cathedral plays an important part in our mission to, especially the homebound, but to that wider television audience, those who join us, tie it together. So our experience of prayer at St. James Cathedral now is shared with people all over, all throughout the diocese and even beyond. But even more than that, we have this event, and we're really hoping that this whole year is a time of celebration. We want to reinvigorate the idea of pilgrimage groups, maybe parish groups coming to visit the Cathedral Basilica, to make a visit. I know a high school out on Long Island, one of their summer camps, they came in 2 different groups, came to make this part of a pilgrimage. St. James is so tied up with the idea of pilgrimage. So we want to see people come and visit and remember the roots of our faith here in Long Island.
Yes, it really does speak to the past and the future. Talk about the significance of this anniversary and how, you know, there's always been a constant. I was listening to your podcast. You were talking about how, you know, one thing has always remained the same, even though the diocese keeps changing, and that's the Eucharist, right?
That's right. So for 200 years. Think about the changes that we've seen. We'll just use ourselves in Brooklyn and Queens. The many different immigrant groups that came in different waves at different times all the way through. The development of Brooklyn 200 years ago was basically farmland. We've seen its ups, we've seen its downs. One constant is the Eucharist. The Eucharist has been celebrated here regularly. The Eucharist has gathered people together. 33 different languages in Brooklyn and Queens every week, but it's the same Eucharist. It's the same Jesus Christ who gives himself to us, and then it's the same Jesus Christ who sends us forth now as his witnesses in the world. That's the constant.
Absolutely. And Bishop, you grew up in New York, and St. James is your home cathedral. What is your favorite memory at the church?
I'll tell you something. I really didn't come to know it, even though, I'm a part of Long Island until I was in the seminary. So I know I've been there for diocese events when I was a seminarian, so it brings me back to the time of my formation. But going back even further, my dad, he talks about being in school at St. Bridget's in Ridgewood and at St. Francis Prep. And he didn't use the word pilgrimage, but he said, I remember we made a trip to St. James Cathedral. So there's a family tie, that sense of pilgrimage that's been there through the generations. And then, of course, coming here now as bishop, the day I was announced, we made a visit to St. James and meeting Father Patterson and having a chance to pray there. That'll always be a highlight for me, that first visit coming after being named the Bishop of Brooklyn and Queens.
That was Brooklyn Bishop Robert Brennan. Again, that Mass will be open to all. Just come to the Cathedral Basilica of St. James Sunday, August 14th at 2 p.m. Even if you can't come, don't worry. The Mass will be broadcast live on Net TV. Again, that Mass will be on Sunday, August 14th at 2 p.m. For those attending St. James in person, there are a few ways to get there. Of course, you can drive and find a few parking garages close by, but there are also 8 different trains that will bring you to the Cathedral Basilica. You can take the A, C, F, or R train to J Street Metrotech. From there, you just walk down J Street for 2 blocks and you're right there. You can also take the 2, 3, 4, or 5 train to Borough Hall. Once you get out of the subway, just walk down Cadman Plaza East away from Borough Hall and make a right on Tillery Street and then a left at J Street. For both ways, you should see St. James on the right side of the street. If you want something to listen to on your way to the anniversary Mass, how about tuning in to Bishop Brennan's podcast that you heard in my story on the Cathedral Basilica of St. James? Just go to podcast.dioceseofbrooklyn.org, or you can search for Big City Catholics on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. New episodes drop every Friday. There's an update on the unprecedented raid on former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago home. According to a new report, the FBI recovered 11 sets of classified documents from the Florida estate. Citing a leaked inventory from the FBI, the Wall Street Journal reported that 4 sets of top secret documents, 3 sets of secret documents, and 3 sets of confidential documents were found at the Palm Beach resort. The inventory did not include any details about what the documents contained, but the Washington Post is reporting that the feds were looking for documents related to nuclear weapons. In response, Trump's lawyers claim that the documents have all been declassified before the former president left the White House. A new economic report out Wednesday is fueling hopes that inflation is easing. New numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics signal runaway inflation took a bit of a breather in July. The Consumer Price Index rose 8.5% compared to the same time a year ago, which was less than expected. The report comes after Senate lawmakers passed the Inflation Reduction Act Sunday. The $700 billion measure hopes to address inflation in 2 ways: by promoting clean energy and by tackling deficit reduction. The director of the Catholic Climate Covenant has praised the bill, saying in part, "We know this is just the start, but the passage of this bill will be our nation's most significant commitment to addressing the climate crisis. It provides a glimmer of hope for future generations and begins to heal the scars we've inflicted upon our common home. While it took decades to get to this point and the legislation is not perfect, let us rejoice in this moment and celebrate this historic legislation." New York City Mayor Eric Adams signed a series of bills into law Friday, ensuring abortion access across the city. The 6 measures prohibit the use of city resources to enforce abortion restrictions and increase protections for those seeking and performing abortions. The measures also make medication abortion free at city-run clinics. It comes nearly 2 months after the Supreme Court released its decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. City health officials Friday urged New Yorkers to get vaccinated against polio if they're not already. This after the virus was detected in the city's wastewater. The discovery suggests that polio has been circulating undetected in the city, and already at least 1 person in Rockland County has tested positive for the incurable disease that could lead to paralysis and death. It's the first case of the virus seen in the U.S. since 1993. New COVID guidance from the CDC will have an impact on students returning to class for the new school year. The agency lifted its test-to-stay policy as well as social distancing recommendations, like keeping classes separate and people 6 feet apart. Chris Wynn has the details.
After more than 2 years of disruptions at schools across the country due to COVID-19, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention issuing promising new guidance just as students get back to class.
We should look forward to a very different school year. We should look forward to a school year where every child is in school, in person, full-time for the whole year.
Among the biggest changes, the CDC removing its test-to-stay policy, meaning kids who are close contacts of someone testing positive for COVID-19 won't have to take regular tests and test negative to remain in class. Also gone, social distancing recommendations, like keeping classes separate and people 6 feet apart.
It is much more possible now to live life, to do the things that matter to all of us, because we have the tools we need to do them, and we can do them safely.
Students and staff also no longer need to quarantine if exposed to COVID-19. The CDC recommends wearing a mask for 10 days and testing on day 5 after exposure. The new guidance set to be implemented in New York City schools, the nation's largest school district.
We're going to continue to do the things we believe is going to keep New Yorkers safe.
This, as a new Pediatrics Journal study shows nearly 30% of kids hospitalized for COVID-19 or a COVID-related condition called multi-symptom inflammatory syndrome in children had symptoms for at least 2 months after diagnosis, including fatigue, shortness of breath, and coughing. Chris Wynn, Currents News.
New York State laws will no longer refer to prisoners as inmates, but instead they'll call them incarcerated individuals. It's all a part of a new law Governor Kathy Hochul signed on Monday. She says that removing the term inmate will help reduce the stigma against incarcerated people. The measure was signed in conjunction with another bill that expands the accessibility of the community supervision programs that are required of parolees. And the New York City Council discussed a new measure Thursday that would limit a landlord or broker's use of background checks when screening tenants. A majority of the council voiced support for the bill, saying it will help the formerly incarcerated secure homes amid a raging housing crisis. According to the Prison Policy Initiative, formerly incarcerated people are nearly 10 times more likely to be homeless than the general public. There's a lot more news headed your way. It's Adams versus Abbott. The New York City mayor and the Texas governor trading verbal jabs over migrants being bussed out of the Lone Star State. And a summer camp with a creative twist combining faith and the fine arts. We'll take a peek at the story in this week's tablet when we come back. A Catholic parish in D.C. has launched a new effort to help the migrants bust from the southern border. St. Peter's Catholic Church on Capitol Hill has opened up its parish hall to welcome the arriving migrants, offering food, shelter, and supplies to the weary travelers as soon as they get off the bus. The church has also teamed up with the nonprofit SAMU First Response, which has been helping the migrants connect with family and friends living in the States. New York City has also been welcoming these migrants, who the Texas governor is busing to sanctuary cities. And because of that, the war of words between Mayor Eric Adams and Governor Greg Abbott escalated this week. While the battle makes for sensational headlines, it's also highlighting a border crisis that leaders of those states say is out of control.
Go ahead, Mayor. Make my day.
I know he thinks he's Clint Eastwood, but he's not.
The battle between New York City Mayor Eric Adams and Texas Governor Greg Abbott continues as the Big Apple tries to help the dozens of migrants Abbott is busing in. On Fox News, Abbott quoted Clint Eastwood's character Dirty Harry in response to Adams saying he would send New Yorkers by bus to Texas to campaign against his re-election bid.
There could hardly be anything better to aid my campaign against Beto O'Rourke than to have Beto O'Rourke have his campaign aided by a bunch of New Yorkers.
I am going to do everything feasible to make sure the people of Texas realize how harmful he is to us globally. He's a global embarrassment. Because this is not what we do as Americans.
Abbott says Texas has been busing migrants to Democratic cities to show them a fraction of what Texas faces daily because of what he calls Biden's open border policies, and he vowed to keep sending the buses. This as New York City struggles to accommodate the surge of migrants in its homeless shelter system. Catholic Charities of New York has been packing supplies for the migrants. Meanwhile, down at the southern border,
we're doing everything that we can within our capacity.
Patrick Giuliani of the Catholic organization Hope Border Institute is with the migrants there and has this reminder that they're just people who need help.
It's people who are often feeling violence in their home country, whether it's political reasons or domestic issues or just organized crime in their home countries. They're leaving their communities, their homes, places they've grown up, their history, their culture, and all that is on the hopes of finding protection here in the U.S.
And there could soon be more people looking for help as the Biden administration ended the Trump-era Remain in Mexico policy this week. That clears the way for potentially tens of thousands more migrants to enter the U.S. and stay here while they await court hearings. We're in the home stretch of summer now, but some kids are enjoying their final days before school restarts at a Catholic summer camp. The one-week program at the Belfry Center combined art and faith, allowing campers to choose activities based on their interests to have a fun and educational summer experience. Some of the stuff the kids did this week included art projects, exploring nature, gathering in prayer, and much more. To find out more about the center, just go to your local church and pick up a copy of the tablet newspaper, or to get it sent directly to your mailbox, just subscribe online at thetablet.org. Still to come on Currents News, he braved shark-infested waters to help his team. Next, a St. Francis Prep football coach tells us how he made it through a dangerous charity swim. And a young Florida boy who's bringing some cheer to Ukrainian children with a mountain of stuffed animals. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. A St. Francis Prep football coach crossed the finish line last weekend on a difficult charity swim. Coach Rich Carroll swam about 1.5 miles from Alcatraz prison in San Francisco through shark-infested waters, all to raise money for a portable scoreboard for the school. The football coach completed the swim in just under an hour and managed to raise more than $13,000. I spoke to Coach Carroll about that moment he finished the swim and the hardest part of the challenge.
Getting through the end and climbing up the beach to get through the finish line, there was just the crowd of people. It was really just an amazing experience. Manipulating your sights of where you're headed is very tough with the currents. You have to really sight way ahead of yourself to know that the current is going to be in effect. So targeting your exit from the water was really one of the toughest things. The current just had such a strong pull, and really caused a lot of problems for just your regular swimmer, let alone people who were experts at the swim.
Coach Carroll's donation page is still open for anyone wishing to help the high school. Just search on Facebook for Coach Carroll's Alcatraz Swim for Friends of SFP Football. He wants to bring smiles to the children of Ukraine, one toy at a time. The 11-year-old from Florida has collected almost 6,000 of them to send to kids in the war-torn country. As Ashley Harding reports, he's partnering with businesses and the YMCA.
By most accounts, Sage Goodall is a typical 11-year-old. He has a ton of energy and a big personality. Mommy, I'm stuck! But none of that compares to the size of his heart. A heart measured in stuffed animals. It started simple enough.
Just one day, I was just in my living room, just minding my own business, watching TV. CNN came on and it was saying about all these kids from Ukraine because of all their houses being blown up.
That's when Sage and his mom Rhonda decided to launch Hugs for the Children of Ukraine. Each donated stuffed toy will go to a child impacted by the war.
They need to feel what the normal kids of the world feel when they can hug on to something when they're scared or sad.
They stored their first collections in the family living room.
They have people.
But then the YMCA of Northeast Florida got on board. Its branches became donation sites, and each new toy is like a hug from thousands of miles away. Rhonda is still overwhelmed by the response.
The thought of a child, as Sage says, hugging on to one of these and being able to walk around, carry it around with them. They are every bit as special as every single person.
With this response comes a message from Sage to his fellow kids. Every child is special. Show kindness.
Everyone's the same. They're just human beings that God created them, and they need to realize that don't think about yourself, think about others and before you.
Making it positively Jack's difference, one hug at a time.
What a sweet kid. That was Ashley Harding reporting. Sage says he's not done yet. He's setting new goals for himself when it comes to collecting. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.